The number and variety of strange creatures that people report seeing is astonishing. Of course, it's possible that they are misidentifying known creatures. But what if only some of these sightings are accurate? Here are real reports of cryptids, monsters, and other strange creatures. But before we get into this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now sit back, relax, and as always, enjoy. You will never believe what I saw one very cold, dry November night. My family and I moved into a new house upon a hill on a little back road in the very small town of Fort Gay. Fort Gay sits right at the east side of Kentucky. The population of my town then was probably just a couple of thousand. My family and I were unpacking. We had not yet put the furniture in its rightful place and everything was still in boxes. Overwhelmed with working all day, I retired about 11 p.m. I put my little brother on the couch and I took his bed, since my bed wasn't put together yet. His room faces the front of the house. His window is about 20 to 25 feet or so off the ground. I was looking out the window when I saw it. It stood there, about 7 feet tall. I had no idea what it was, but I was frozen. I had never been that scared in all my life. All I could do was lay there and just stare at this thing. It was sitting in a tree about 50 feet or so off the ground, about 50 feet from the house across the yard. It felt like an eternity. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even blink. It had big, red, bright glowing eyes, looking dead into my face. I finally worked up enough courage to close my eyes and put my head under the covers, when all of a sudden, this thing smacked the window. I went through the house screaming. "There's something outside," I was crying. My mom and dad looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you? It looked like you've seen a ghost." My face was snow white. I said, "I don't know what it was, but please, Daddy, don't go outside." I begged and I begged. He came back in and said there was nothing out there. I kept screaming, saying, "Yes, there is. Yes, there is." When I explained to them what I saw and how I felt, they said I was crazy. But to this day, I will not go outside by myself. And even in the day, someone still has to walk me to my car. I've heard of some pretty crazy things going on up that road, but I never expected to experience anything myself. I went to the theaters and watched Mothman Prophecies. I was reliving that night all over again. The way they described feeling and what they saw was remarkable. My partner looked over at me and said, "Isn't that what you described to me when we first started dating?" I couldn't say a word. After that moment, I knew what I saw. I believe in all heart of hearts I saw the Mothman. It was just a little weird. I only live about 80 miles south of Point Pleasure, where all that took place 37 years ago. It was exactly 32 years ago to the month when I saw it. This next one is from Frank Sorko. I used to work at a cheese factory on the edge of a cornfield in southwestern Minnesota. There was a series of days in the summer of 04 or 05 where it was so hot that the milk being delivered to us in trucks would evaporate before we got it. It made work easy. The dearth of milk denied us any actual labour, but management wouldn't let us not come to work, so we would show up and mess around all shift. I was working nights at the time. It was 2 or 3 a.m. and I was out on the loading dock watching bats fly around the floodlights because I like being out in the cool night air. The corn was about as high as my shoulder, so about 5'10". As I was watching the bats, I looked down at the edge of the cornfield. Something was moving there. It was the size of a small child and very, very skinny, pale, with something that looked like a head of straight black hair. It moved in a sort of a jerky gait, like something dancing the robot very badly. It moved in chunks, legs, then hips, then torso, shoulders, neck and head. It was looking back into the cornfield, or at least I felt like it was. I felt prickly all over. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a heron or something at first, but it looked too much like a person. It didn't move like a person though. Gradually, step by step, it moved towards me. Letting my curiosity better my fear, I moved towards the edge of the dock, which was raised a few feet off the ground. When I got to within a few feet of the edge, the thing looked at me. I was paralyzed. I could have run, but I was stuck somewhere between terrified and intrigued. It moved its face, still pointed at me. It ratcheted its body in that disconcerting, jerky movement towards the cornfield and went into it. I tried to watch where the field moved as it passed, but the corn remained perfectly still. I noticed that all the crickets were silent. After a few minutes, nothing happened. I stood there for an hour. It never came back, and I never ever saw it again. This next story is from Joanna. My strange story took place on the 26th of September 2009. My church was on a retreat in Indiana, in a forest. The place we stayed at was a small building in the center of the forest. We decided that evening to go out and play in the forest with the children, so when we came up with a game to play, it was like police. The kids were the police and we would pick an adult to be the hostage. So, when we began the game, we had to find the adult hiding in the forest in the middle of the night. So we started going around the back of the buildings and we spotted a tall figure. It had to be at least 6 feet tall. It was running towards the trees where there was a small open area with tall grass that goes up to your knees. It ran with its arms at its side, but it stopped at the edge of the tall grass, as if to wait for us to get closer. We chased after it, thinking it was the adult. When we were finally a few yards away, it dove into the grass and started to crawl very fast, almost snake-like. We got weirded out, but stood there staring at it. When it got across the tall grass, it began to climb a tree. It looked somewhat like a deformed cat-like animal when it was climbing. Then a few moments later a kid yelled, "I see him," and was pointing in the opposite direction. We saw a similar figure running a couple of yards away, so we chased it. But then it vanished behind a tree. Turns out, a few minutes later we found the adult hiding in the parking lot in front of the building the whole time. So who knows what we saw that night in the forest. At least 15 kids saw that thing with me, so I know I'm not crazy. What do you think that was? Leave a comment down below. This next story comes in from Helen Jameson. I was diving on Broadkill Road in Broadkill Beach, Delaware around dusk in July 2007. This road borders a swamp area. Standing on the side of the road by the swamp, my daughter and I saw a creature like we've never seen before. It stood about 2.5 or 3 feet tall, with long legs, a tan body, and flat, almost puggish face and a long tail. It had small ears and looked to be about 30 pounds. My other daughter and her friends also saw the same animal the year before, around the same area, except it was night and it ran in front of their car. I asked the lady who owned the Broadkill Beach store about it, and she said she had seen it once when she was dirt biking with her dad in that area years before. And both her and her dad had no idea what it was, even though she was raised around Broadkill. She said we were lucky to have spotted it, as very few people have seen it. We went to the Prime Hook Reserve, this is what the swamp area is called, museum, and they had no idea what it could be. I'm wondering if anyone else has seen this thing, and what the heck is it? So if you're watching this video, have you seen anything like this around the Delaware area or anywhere else? If so, leave a comment down below in the comment section and maybe help Helen out. This next story is from Jessica in Australia. I'm not entirely sure of the exact date of when this happened, but it would have to be around 1999, maybe in spring or summer. Living in Australia, you are bound to see strange things from time to time, although most have an explanation behind them, but this is totally different. I was young at the time, probably 9 or so, and my family was having a barbecue in the backyard of our house. We were all sitting at the table on the patio, eating, drinking, talking, not really paying attention to anything surrounding us. Suddenly I heard a plop noise come from the leaf over in the garden, around the back fence. I immediately turned and looked to see what had made the noise. To my horror, I saw a small blue creature look at me and then run to the shrubbery. It was about 6 inches tall on all fours. It didn't have any toes that I could see, which stuck out a little bit to me. Its face was vertically oval-shaped, with small black eyes, a long protruding nose, and a grimacing mouth filled with almost needle-like teeth. The outer of the face was dark blue, sort of like a mane, but it looked hairless. The rest of the face and body was light blue. The best I can describe the body is like that of a lion, except with short legs, no tail, and less sculpted. I looked at my brother and he said, "What was that?" He had seen it too. When my mom calmed us down, she took my brother and me to separate rooms of the house and got us to draw what we had seen. We both drew the very same thing. I was terrified for the rest of the night. To this day, I still don't know what that creature was, and it still gives me the creeps. Any ideas what Jessica encountered in Australia? Let us know in the comments down below. This next story comes in from John Britton. The following happened in Vidor, Texas on June 20th, 2000 around 1 a.m. I just got off from work and was headed east. On this road there is a 90-degree turn, and at times you have to watch because cattle might be out and on the road. That morning, that's what I thought had happened. No one else was on the road, but I saw red eyes that would look at the truck lights and look down over and over, and I knew something was not right. I was driving on the left-hand side of the road. When I got close, I noticed that this red-eyed creature stood about 5 foot tall and sported black hair all over its body. I stopped the truck and got out my spotlight and shined it on the creature. It seemed like forever, but I know that it was only a few minutes. This creature raised its arm above its head and let out a terrible scream that I have heard before. It turned around and went back behind the house and left. I have heard that sound before when I lived in Teal Road in Orange, Texas, just a few miles from this location. I've travelled this road many times hoping to see this creature again, and never have. I'm told it is a creature that is related to Bigfoot, but I don't know what that thing was, but I'll never forget that roar. What do you think that was? Was that a juvenile Bigfoot or something else?